Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode in the series Conversations with Shelly. I am Shelly. Thank you so much for joining. For those of you who are new here, and for those of you who are joining not for the first time, but you've been here for some time with me, thank you as always for sticking and staying, and welcome back. So, this week I want to dive into something that has taken a lot of the social media space this week, particularly when it comes to um, the talk shows that I've been watching, recently. Guys, don't knock me too much for that, right? But we all have to, you know, get comfortable with social media. It's what it is, yeah? So I wanted to talk about what has happened recently in the space where I came across a lot of talk show hosts speaking about Megan the Stallion and how her other half has cheated on her. And one of the questions that came up in the many discussions and narrative and chatter was the question of how could somebody cheat on Megan the Stallion? No, I remember many years ago because Megan the Stallion would have been a part of this era and this generation, but certainly back in my days it was Halle Berry. And a lot of persons just couldn't understand how could anybody cheat on the Halle Berry. And of course, having seen so many years pass and we're always having somebody stepping into that particular shoe, stepping into the shoes of a Halle Berry, stepping into the shoe of a Brooke Shields, stepping into the shoe of any other person that, globally is considered to be the most beautiful or within the top 10 most beautiful persons in the world. There's always a point in time when this discussion, this conversation comes back to the forefront. So you can imagine it sparked my interest and I wanted to speak about it. So for this week's topic, I want to look at the idea that she has everything. So why was she still betrayed? And this is what I want to talk about this week. So let us dive into it. So, of course, she has everything: beauty, success, admiration. And on the surface, her life looks comfortable. It is the kind of life that people admire instantly, you know, and some secretly wish they had. And the question that comes up all the time is why? Why was she still betrayed? And why does this story repeat itself more often than anyone wants to admit? Because we need to understand what is it that is the illusion and what is it that we are taught to believe. So, in simple terms, what we are taught to believe is that if you become enough, if you are pretty enough, if you're successful enough, if you're lovable enough, then betrayal becomes impossible. And that is the illusion that we are taught, right? But real life doesn't follow that rule because relationships don't break only where people can see them. Then that's it with you for a little bit. Relationships don't break only where people can see them. Relationships break quietly. They break in conversations that never happen, in emotions that never get named. And long before anything physically ever enters a space or anything ever changes, something emotionally already exists. And this is what we're talking about, is the disconnect. Now, betrayal is rarely a single moment. It's a build up, it's a slow drift where one person starts to feel unseen, the other person starts to feel misunderstood, and both begin to exit in separate emotional worlds. And where the uncomfortable truth comes in is that even someone who has everything externally, they can still be emotionally disconnected internally. So, because the attention is not the same as intimacy, and admiration is certainly not the same as emotional safety, then this is one of the main reasons why betrayal happens. And people will often ask, so why would someone betray a partner that is like that? You know? And the answer, to be honest, is really simple. The answer sometimes it's insecurity, It's sometimes an addiction to being validated. Sometimes it's emotional immaturity and the inability to sit with discomfort inside the relationship. And sometimes the truth about it is that it's not even about the partner at all. Most times, it's about the person who chooses to betray. And the unresolved chaos that they themselves sometimes carry inside that you will not understand and you'll never be able to really fully appreciate. Because the truth about life is that temptation doesn't create weakness, it only reveals it, right? So the myth of having it all is something that we need to no longer romanticize because we romanticize the idea of having it all as if life upgrades automatically and it guarantees this stability that otherwise would not exist. But human connection doesn't work like a status symbol, it just doesn't. And what you have and what you can have from the world in terms of attention, it will still feel invisible to the one person who matters the most. So people often don't stay loyal to perfection, they stay where they feel emotionally anchored. They stay where they feel safe. So the hard truth is, and this is where the story becomes uncomfortable, because it forces us to ask questions we don't like to ask. Like, was there distance before the betrayal? Weren't their needs not being met or expressed? And were things being assumed? Were the two persons in the relationship truly connected, or were they just performing a relationship for the outside world? Very important question to ask. And sometimes betrayal is not the beginning of the end, it is a confirmation of an ending that already happened emotionally. And not all ending looks like a breakup. That is certainly another truth, right? Sometimes the ending just looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like deception. And sometimes even in those deceptions, people still stay together, right? So I want us to reflect on shifting the perspective a little bit. Shifting the perspective a little bit because here is what most people miss. This is not just a story about betrayal. In most instances, it's not. It's a story about perception, how we are perceived within our relationship, what we assume external protects us, what we assume will allow us not to go through that emotional pain, and whether or not it does is something that we need to reconcile. Because emotional connection isn't earned through appearance, it's built through presence, consistency, and truth be told, even when it is uncomfortable. Yeah? And without that, even the most perfect life that we see can feel empty in places that matters the most. So, in closing, maybe the real question should never be why was she betrayed? Maybe the real question should be why do we still believe that being enough on the outside is going to guarantee connections that are deep and well seated on the inside? Because let me tell you something, at the end of the day, people don't always betray perfection. What they will betray is disconnection. So, if what I've said resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, I always ask that you consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and certainly commenting. And until I see you on the next one, take care of yourselves and each other.